Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
And it's the last podcast of season 3. Can you believe we've been doing this nonsense for 3?
You'd think we'd be fucking leaving for years on end, innit? One week break.
Yeah, true.
I don't know who's having more withdrawals, the listeners or me and you. The longest you and I have gone without speaking to each other since we started Series 1, I would say.
It probably will be, but then you're working off the assumption that I'm not going to phone you next week, mate.
I ain't going to fucking answer.
But I have to say, not because obviously I beat you this year, but this has been the most enjoyable season of FPL for me. I think it feels like finally it's coming together, and also obviously we've had such a massive growth in the number of listeners and all that kind of stuff. But yes, the season is done. We're hotly anticipating the start of next season's game. We don't know when it's going to reopen yet, but sometime in the next week or two.
Next week.
Probably, maybe. Let's look at our season, James. You had a look at a lot of stats from Premier Tools, where you can go and download a lot of your different decisions over the season. Like it tells you who you picked as captain most and how many captaincy points you had, and so on and so on and so on. It's a very good tool.
It's not War and Peace, but I've taken a few numbers out to compare mine and your season to see if there was anything beyond the obvious. James, oh my God, you triple captain Sadio Mane. That's why your season became, and you dropped beyond 1 million around about game week 24 before recovering. Was there anything beyond that was obvious in there that kind of differentiated why you beat me essentially by 7 points? Essentially, we finished very similar. What was I doing well or bad, and what was you doing well or bad?
Well, I think the thing is, with that level of margin of error that I beat you by, I don't think that you can say that I did anything better than you or you did anything worse than me. It's 7 points.
Well, I got something for you straight away that's going to change your opinion on that.
Tell me then.
Last season, I scored 419 captain points. Do you know how many you scored?
503 or something, was it?
You scored 538.
Okay. That was close.
You got 119 more captain points than me.
Wow. So the question then is...
The question is, nobody should ever ask me again, James, who shall I captain this week?
Because it starts with Kevin and ends in De Bruyne.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the point. If I captained De Bruyne every week blind, I would have got the same total as that. That's part of the point of the message here. Because a couple of times he wouldn't play, you'd have the vice, right?
Yeah. 419 points divided by 2. So you're talking about 208, give or take, would be the player. If you'd have blind captained De Bruyne, you would have got, more points. There's a number of players you could have blind captained and got.
Trent. Could have captained Trent every week.
Yeah.
And done better. So it tells me that the way I manage FPL isn't particularly bad. Tells me I have a massive problem with captain selections. Whereas you are doing extremely well on captains. Your success rate of captain picks is 72%. Mine is 53% for the season just gone.
That's a massive difference.
And your run, by the way, I think from around about game week 15 or so, you only missed 3 times. Now, we've used data from Premier FPL Tools, so they consider 3 points as a blank. A 4-point return would be a successful captain.
Sure.
Mate, you're hitting successive captains regularly. I didn't have a period during the whole season where I had more than 3 successful captain picks in a row.
Wow. Why
you are the fucking expert, aren't you?
Why is that? Am I safe?
It's quite simple. I made bad decisions. No, looking at it, no. I think one of the reasons, if we look at most captains, this will make people laugh, for example, but I captained Harry Kane 8 times. You captained Jamie Vardy 9 times. So there's not 20 picks there on Salah or anything like that.
Yeah, sure.
We've both at one time or another picked a form forward. In my case, the Harry Kane captaincies are over 2 periods. One is the first 10 game weeks of the season where I decided I had a rotation with him and Sterling and I wasn't moving off it.
Yep.
And the second time I backed Harry Kane for the 3 fixtures straight after wildcard, which was Brighton, Norwich and Southampton. He scored in 2 of those 3 games. And in fact, my returns on Kane from them eight captaincies are 90 points. It's not bad. It's actually the most points I got from any captain this season. As you would expect, the player you captain the most gets you the most captain points.
Correct.
Jamie Vardy got the most for you as well, 106 points from 9 captaincies. So, I mean, looking through my data, there's nobody else I've captained more than 6 times. I've actually moved a lot. Now, you can successfully move around captains. There's no doubt about it. The one within me that's obviously biting is captaining Kevin De Bruyne 4 times. Do you know how many points I got of Kevin De Bruyne in 4 captaincies? It's about fucking 70, mate.
I captained
fucking
Kevin
absurd.
De Bruyne 5 times, and he got me 64 points from 5 captaincies.
There you go.
Incredible.
So what lessons do we learn about it? Because captaincy is obviously a major part of FPL. Essentially there, if I have the sort of captain record that you have there, I'm going to be sort of top 20k or so, I think, without having studied it. But I think roughly that's where I'd be. So, but then the flip of that is if you lose your high rate of captaincy, suddenly you're probably dropping to about 400-500k.
My thing is, I don't really have, I'm not about to turn around to you and say, though, James, I have a strategy around captaincy. Like, I look at the XG and the XGC, and then I look at the form, and then I look at the number of minutes played, and then I ask the player how many eggs he had for breakfast, followed by how many hairs does he have on his head. I don't have like a magic formula. I would say, as a rule, I'm a very safe captaincy picker.
I think I am as well.
But I'm also, I judge each game on its merit. So obviously we're picking premium players as our captains more often than not. The Vardys, Aubameyang, Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, what have you. I don't think form ever really comes into it for me. It doesn't matter if Bruno Fernandes blanks in a game. It doesn't then put me off captaining him again the following week. And the number of people that got stung this year in between those 2 game weeks where he blanked, everybody captained him, and then he got 2 15-pointers in a row, and people had jumped away because of that rage. You need to judge each situation on its merits and not really let potentially those kind of things get in the way of your decision making.
I hear you. And just looking at what the extra 120 points would have done for me, actually, I would have been comfortably inside the top 10k.
Yeah.
It's important, right?
Very, very important.
More important than we think. And you even think that period at the end where we went over this before, I think on one of the Patreon pods, where after lockdown, I had all but 1 week, 2 weeks below like 70 or so, and they were a 58 and a 50, so weren't disastrous. But looking beyond the massive game week 30, 70, this is my captains on some of these scores, right? Game week 31, 75 points. Bruno Fernandes, 6-pointer as captain. So 3-pointer, let's call it a 3-pointer.
Yep.
76 points in game week 32. Captain Raul Jimenez, 2-pointer. Game week 33, 58-pointer. Trent Alexander-Arnold, 6-pointer. 70 points, De Bruyne, 7-pointer. 70 points again, Fernandes, 5-pointer. 52 points, Jesus, 8-pointer. And a 78-pointer, Fernandes, 1 point. And finally, 75 points, Sterling, 8 points. So my scores, like even in the restart, strong, good. Captaincy, shit. Them captaincies would have had me doing serious bits, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I need to, what am I doing wrong? Basically. Perhaps, or at least know that I've got to improve somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, knowing you as I know you, and the listeners will as well from listening, your thought process is generally very logical. So I don't think you would have done anything differently had you been in the same situation again. This is where it just comes down to luck sometimes a little bit. Let me ask you a question. How often will you pick a captain as a defensive move? So if you know that in a particular week, Liverpool are playing Norwich and you own Salah or Mane, and you know everyone's going to captain Salah or Mane, but then Newcastle could beat Aston Villa or something, and Kevin De Bruyne could just as easily go mental. Do you look at what other people are, who other people are choosing?
Yes and no. It comes down to like personal preference. So quite often, I'll be honest, I will normally swim with the tide. I think quite often you're better off swimming with it. And then when you have a strong opinion against that tide, that's the time to move elsewhere and do something. I mean, if I analyse the worst part of my season, it was obviously triple captain in Mane. That wasn't the mistake. Shit can happen. The mistake was not immediately buying Mohamed Salah to replace him and thinking, do you know what? I could just do without it for one game week. If Salah misses here, I'll be all right. And it smashed me. It was my worst game week score of the season. And Salah went mental again, right? And everybody else who had Mane moved to Salah or already had Salah captained him again. So it was so far behind everybody that week. So that week I took a conscious decision. No, I believe in Mane over Salah as a long-term pick. I'm just going to wait it out. And then what did I do after Southampton? I made the move anyway, because then I felt, fuck, I have to. Yeah. And the damage was already done.
One of the very good managers in the game, Late Riser, who jumps on our streams, and a shout out to him. The thing I like about his philosophy of management is this upside chasing. So where I'm talking about, if you're being defensive and picking a captain because everybody else does, he'll talk about go and find the alternative captain that's out there. Now, it's a risky strategy because if they bang and your player doesn't, you can fall away particularly well. But in a situation where you own that player as well, then you're kind of mitigating your risk a little bit. So if you already own Kevin De Bruyne, everybody's captain Kevin De Bruyne, but you honestly have a gut on Martial or whoever else it may be, the big gains can be made when you go away from the tide and don't be defensive. But we're not talking about being maverick here and captaining someone completely left field. But 7 or 8 times a season, finding that one player that could give you that upside. And if you really are picking a good player with good upside, then half of those times they're going to return as well anyway, in my opinion. And you're looking for the 3 or 4 occasions where they go mental, and then suddenly you're talking about a 70, 80 point over a season game, which is interesting. So for me, I think next year, if I think that player is the best captaincy option and everybody's captaining him, then yeah, sure, I'm still going to captain him. If I think that there's ground to be gained because there's someone else equally as good and I own the highly owned player, I may look to be a little bit different in captaincy. He says having just hit his captain 72% of the time.
Yeah, I can understand. I think the bad captaincies, if there's been one or two looking back on it, is thinking, say like Raul Jimenez against Villa. Yeah. And getting that fear of, do I want to captain the player that's playing later in the week? That kind of thing. Raul Jimenez very rarely scores more than once. Generally speaking, he's probably a bad captaincy. He's a good vice captaincy because he plays more minutes than any other forward, basically. Is he a good captaincy any game week? No, not really. But it felt like a safe choice. What I should do more is go for what's the best upside here? So it brings me on to someone like Trent, for example, to know that, all right, yeah, he could win 2-1 and he gets absolutely nothing. It's a 2-pointer. He's very capable of having a mad one. Your best captaincy this season was Trent Alexander-Arnold, triple captain in game week 24.
Yeah, I think triple captain is a little bit of a myth.
You went for the upside, and it was the best upside.
Trent in a double game week is so tempting because of the 2 opportunities for him to both pick up 2 clean sheets and then chuck in an attacking return on top of that, and you'll take that all the way.
So I've Pranil, Late Riser, I don't think he'll mind us doing the analysing on this, right? Because I've just had a look at his team.
Yeah.
So he only hit captain 64% of the time last season. Now he finished a ridiculous rank overall in the world. 31st is where he finished in the world. He hit captain only 64% of the time. But here's the kicker.
Points.
You on your captain picks hit 538 points. He hit 573.
Exactly. So this is the upside chasing that I like the idea of, where he's found and just gone for it, balls out. Impressive. Yeah, impressive strategy. Now, looking at the season overall, I had my game week 5 basically was the killer for the entire season. I scored 26 points in game week 5, and I dropped from a rank of 900k to 2.7 million in one game week. Now it was early.
You're more, yeah, exactly, yeah.
But if you look at my graph for the rest of the season, it was basically a continuous rise throughout the season, back up to my final rank of 131k or what have you. It was consistent. There was a handful of red arrows in there. You're talking about 7 or 8. But every other week, I was chipping away, making ground steadily back up my rank. Had I not had that one mega blip and dropped down to 2.7 million, then yeah, that could have been a potentially good, even closer to the top 10k last year as well. And what do you do? How do you avoid random game weeks where you end up with 26 points?
Everyone's likely to have one. I mean, for example, mine was at game week 25. I had 30 points straight after the Liverpool's triple captain week. So I went into game week 24 with not the best rank, 482,000. But by the time Salah had done the damage in the 2 games, I was 1.1 million, mate. One big mistake and then bang, gone.
Yeah.
And I've had to make it back up from there to get back to 150k, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you're better off. It's important to analyse what went wrong. I would have no regrets on the fact that I triple captained Sadio Mane. None at all. If the theory's right, etc., no problem with it. The regret is not amending the problem straight afterwards to go, I'm in a massive hole here. And if Salah kind of goes back to are you looking for the gain or are you looking to protect the damage? Right there, I needed to protect the damage because it was already half. The big damage wasn't actually the Mane. It was the following week of having nothing and then Salah as a captaincy by himself getting more points than the rest of my team. That's what killed me, basically. Captain Kevin De Bruyne against Spurs, oddly enough.
I'm looking at my my team in that game week. I mean, Edison in goal, Van Dijk, Robertson and Trent, Sterling, Harry Kane. So give me 26 points, guys. Come on. So flip this discussion on its head now, James. Had you hit your captaincy in the same way as me and got to the top 10k, what would I have had to do differently to then make up that 100-point difference? Not had 1 or 2 ridiculous game weeks potentially.
Yeah, I feel like you probably have mine. Even if you just take from the lockdown, mine's at a very consistent level without hitting the captaincies. Whereas because you're hitting them more, perhaps your overall team with respect might not be as strong as mine. Maybe so you're having more fluctuations between good weeks and bad weeks. I mean, that 30 game week, game week 25 was the only really, really bad game week I had all season. There's a few 40s
I followed up my 26 with a 31 a few weeks later, 30 actually a few weeks later. In that situation, so at the time I had triple Liverpool in the first game week and triple City, and obviously both didn't do particularly well that week.
Then you're going to get hit.
Liverpool conceded a goal against Leicester. I'm just looking here, and City lost 2-0 to Wolves. So if that happens, suddenly all eggs in one basket, ouch, that's going to hurt. Yeah. At that point in the season, though, we did think City and Liverpool.
But that's back to the upside, isn't it? You've covered everyone else's Liverpool and City basically there with 6 players and going really heavy on it.
Yeah.
I think you and I are generally, I am probably more than you. I'm all for treble ups and, if it's there to be done, just get into it and steam into it. I don't have any problem with that. Perhaps one lesson from Sky this year is perhaps need to look at more variations from certain teams because there's only one player can pick up top bonus, for example.
Yeah.
And cover it as much as you want. What's the upside? The upside might be getting the best player from Man City and getting the best player from Newcastle rather than having that extra Man City defender or something. I don't know. These are the sort of things that it's a constant learning game, and next year will evolve to something different again. We all think right now we're going to be looking at premium midfielders. We'll probably find that by October we're looking at premium forwards or something. The game will shift in its movements and stuff. In terms of what you could do more, one thing did stand out for me, and it was the most points given to a team. So KDB was my highest scoring player, was 269. Trent Alexander-Arnold was yours, 227. And bear in mind, you've got a Trent triple captain in there as well. So you obviously went without KDB for a very long time, is what I'm thinking.
Too long. I left it. I also sold him, obviously, when he got injured. Some people just kept him and benched him for that period, and then I bought him back. But I bought him very late in the season.
You also weren't that aggressive. Do you know how many point hits you took last season?
3, maybe?
2. You only hit yourself for 8 points. I took 36 points worth of hits, which is normally more than me. I'll normally probably average out about 5 a season. That's obviously 9. So I was a little bit more aggressive this year than I normally am. I find that with the way I manage for FPL, that aggression doesn't particularly suit me.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it does suit you, actually, because I sometimes just feel like you're at your best when you're a bit fucking kamikaze, personally.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I'm thinking about not joining too many mini leagues next year, because I'm just going to go maverick. But we shall see.
The end of the podcast with skin.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
There wasn't too much data on that. The main discussion was to revolve around, I just thought it was massively surprising to see the difference in your captaincy success rate to mine.
Yeah.
That's a big, big difference. And then, you look at Late Riser, who's obviously an incredible FPL player. He's hitting the return less, but hitting a lot more points than you on it, which is really interesting because he's going exactly what you said there for the upside. I'm glad we threw that in because we never discussed that we were going to discuss that beforehand as well. So well done. I'll have to fucking at him, wouldn't I?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know for certain, but I think he's probably took, memory serves me correctly, about 15 hits or so in the season. If you add that up, you're talking about another 50, 60 points, right? But the point here is I'm quite sure he'll often take hits for the captaincy. So move a player on when he wants to captain another player. And this is where it kind of counteracts itself. It's okay to take big hits if you're going to make big captaincy calls to then counteract that. And it's easier to make up that 4-point hit when you're on double points than anything else.
I'm absolutely fine with that. If someone always says to me on my streams and that, should I take a -4 like before the deadline, one of the answers I regularly give is, are you going ahead with captain them and when again then as well, because it does feel a little bit more worthwhile if you're making that move to go aggressive with it. Well, have we learned anything massive this season?
It's a very good question. Have we learned anything massive this season? I'm not as mental as I thought I was.
Maybe you're a better FPL player than you give yourself credit.
I'm a learning FPL player, as we all are. I think I still want to learn my style of management for sure. I think next season I'm looking forward to it more than any other season. But I'm not sure. To be honest with you, it was a bit of a funny season with the coronavirus break and what have you. Obviously, everyone got an additional wild card. You used it, I didn't. Just saying.
Go fuck yourself. Listen, the one repetitive theme I do see on Twitter in relation to captains is can't believe our little captain De Bruyne. Can't believe our little captain De Bruyne. I see it all the time. So it could be that it swings too far the other way next season, where everyone thinks, do you know what, I'm just deading it on him. And it is frustrating when you look at it and you go, I owned De Bruyne, I think, for 35 game weeks, I think. I mean, I got to about game week 4 and I was like, I basically chose Sterling over him at the start, which wasn't too bad. Sterling got a hat-trick opening day. But I was like, I can't take any more of not having Kevin De Bruyne. It's killing me. So to see it that the captain points you got weren't as much as what you'd have got if you'd have just deaded it on Kevin De Bruyne makes you think, well, I've made 38 decisions here and they were fucking pointless. That's frustrating. But then 500 is, or whatever it was that it would have been, is still way below the total you would have got. And it's obviously way below Late Riser's total as well. So just deadening it on a player is not necessarily the solution.
It's not the right strategy.
You hear that all the time, right? Perma captain. The fuck is perma captain? Perma captain is not going to do the job for you.
No.
And the other word, while we're talking about it, essential. Can we bin that word? Genuinely. I have opinion that Trent and De Bruyne are almost definitely in my team next year, for example, but not essential. We saw the guy was first with like 2 weeks to go or something, hadn't owned Trent all season or something. Yeah, exactly. So it's some nonsense. Play it your way.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, without doubt. Shall we go through some Twitter questions that we've had from
let's
you
do
guys?
that.
Then we'll
wrap
up with a few public service announcements so that you guys know what we've got lined up and planned for the week after once we're back from a short break and hiatus, and then we'll see you in a week. But we've got quite a few questions that have come in, James, from regular listeners jumping in there. So let's just try and get through as many as we possibly can. So Dan, FPL Chancer, having played Sky for the first time last year, are there any elements of that game that you think you can apply to FPL next season to improve your rank?
Possibly. It's a good question. Possibly touched on it a little bit there. Shout out to our friends at Who Got the Assist. Perhaps it's talisman theory. He's getting on to the main guy from Team X. Like, I think Saint Maximin, for example, if he stays at Newcastle, could potentially be a very useful FPL and Sky asset next season, for example.
Is that because of the man of the match awards in Sky that you think he could?
No, I just think, what I saw when he played against Spurs in game week 35, he is a far better footballer than I thought he was.
Okay.
Like, it's coming for him. He's got all the tools, just lacks a little bit of composure at the end. And again, it's almost like an upside, right? So you go, get Almiron for cheaper. All right, do you know what? Almiron might tick over with the little bits. Almiron has, St. Maximin's got the potential, I think, in given game weeks next season to potentially explode. I think by January, I think we'll be talking about him in similar terms to how we've been talking about Adama Traore at times this season, in terms of that breakout of when he's running at you just being unstoppable. He's not as strong as Traore. He's not as quick as Traore, but he probably has more technical ability in terms of actual skill. So he's got different traits to Traore. I think he could be a real... You're not thinking of looking at them, for example. You think, the takeover's failed. They're going to be shit. They're going to struggle next year. Doesn't mean he can't be a good asset, as, like, for example, Jack Grealish was for so many times this season.
Sure.
I think it's knowing Jack Grealish was basically an awful FPL asset if you were stuck on him from after the restart. But there were certainly periods, particularly over the winter time, where he was very good playing in a very poor team. So talisman theory is probably something to focus a little bit more on.
Very interesting, that one. Yeah.
Would be one. And that's probably a learning from Sky, because one of the things I want to do in Sky next year is potentially spread what I've got across more teams.
Yeah. I think diversification for me as well. Like, if we're looking at it, I didn't realise how heavy I was in City and Liverpool at the start of the season, when the truth is, at the start of the season, you don't know, right? We the players have been out for a while. I mean, okay, we know Liverpool are going to be good, and we know that City are going to be good, but we don't really know to what extent. So maybe a little bit more diversification is an interesting strategy. The other thing, we'll come back to that. FPL Addict says, well done for all the content you put out. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for all the support. If you could only play one of Sky or FPL, which would you choose and why?
Sky.
I
know, I'm
right?
sorry.
50 grand, right? 50 grand.
Exactly, yeah.
I reckon if FPL didn't exist, I'd be a very good Sky player. It's because of the time distraction.
Here's the reality with FPL. And this is sad, but it's reality. We can analyse this to death, what we do with FPL. The chances of me winning FPL are about 1,000,000 to 1. The chances are that if I enter cash mini leagues next year, the chances are that I am going to lose money because of the high standard of players that I will probably put myself up against.
Yeah.
So, what's the goal? What's the goal? If I do finish 10,000 next year, what happens at the end? Oh, fucking hell, that was a good season. All right, cool. Euros now. All right, see you later. If I win 50 grand in Sky, which is doable, genuinely, it's winnable. It's winnable for anybody.
Agreed.
Somebody listening to this podcast can absolutely win Sky next year if they're based in the UK. I keep screaming this at people. Even if you're a first-time player, you can win Sky in your first year. Which game would I rather play? I'd rather play Sky.
I agree with you. Another interesting take on that is around this whole debate of luck versus skill, and how much of FPL or this kind of game is luck versus skill. And I think the split of skill is much greater in Sky than it is in FPL. I think FPL, you could even go down as far as 50-50. But with Sky, because there's a deeper understanding of things like tier points, And there's a greater strategy around coming off players and on players on the fixtures, etc. There's a greater element of skill in Sky than there is in FPL.
There? I'm not sure I agree with that, to be fair.
There's still more luck involved. There's still luck involved in both games.
Of course there is.
But with Sky, if you with FPL, you can't make transfer advantages on fixtures as easily because of the way the game weeks are potentially and how many free transfers you have and don't have. Whereas with Sky, you can plan longer term and pick the right players and the right moves. With the tier points, having an understanding and knowledge of which players are likely to attract tier points and which are not is a skill that you can study and learn, but it is an art form, whereas bonus points in FPL are pretty much put your finger in the air. And there is a certain element of certain...
No, but then you can do certain things. So what Suj is referring to, and the majority of listeners are probably not going to have played Sky, right? Mm-hmm. Exactly, yeah. So we don't want to cover that too much. But obviously
if they do want to...
You can take advantage on fixtures because there's daily captains. To cut a long story short, we did an intro pod on Wednesday. Please give it a listen. But take FPL, right? One of the great skills in FPL, and we see this every year, right? Teams who've got like 107 million in the bank and stuff like that. So timing of transfers in FPL actually is a big skill if you can get it right. There is risk and reward. You know the risk if you go on early and your player gets injured, for example. But we see that every year, right, where people are ruthless with trying to increase their squad value. Now, I've seen people win FPL with massive squad values, and I've seen people win FPL with far smaller squad values than what I've got, for example, right? So there's fors and against of playing that way, but that's a big skill, actually, Suj. And then identifying players through statistics, etc., is a big skill. If you take the Mane example with me of the triple captaincy, the fact that they failed, bad luck. The fact I didn't buy Salah afterwards, big mistake. There's a difference between the two there, right? One was unlucky. One was a big mistake where I didn't use the skill that I had to press a fucking button and make a transfer, right? So
I
skill certainly does come into FPL.
I suppose my point is just that there's more skill involved in Sky than there is in FPL, in my opinion.
I disagree with that. I think it's the same in terms of the skill sets.
There's more because you can have more influence over your team in a certain way, whereas once it's set and forget in FPL every game week. But do you know what? That's a great thing for the listeners to jump in on and let us know what your opinion is if you have been a Sky player.
We really managed to avoid the luck versus skill conversation. Unfortunately, we just fell into the trap of it. Let's move on quickly.
That's all right. Yeah, before we turn this into Planet Sky FF, which is a completely different show. Morpheus Fire, just a note, thank you for all the work you've done. Enjoy your week off. We certainly will do our best. We have FPL Mindset, James. Again, not a question, but thank you for all the amazing work this season. Anyone who isn't patron is missing out. Well, we'll talk about that later.
I should absolutely tell that Suj has not been through the questions yet.
No, I have not. So if you have sent a question in that's not a question, it's just a thumbs up or a pat on the back or just blowing up our ego.
Thank you.
I'm going to skip past them now, moving forward. FPL Depression. What has been your favourite bit of content you've put out this season?
It's an easy one for me, but I'd like you to answer it first.
24-hour live stream.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, 24-hour live stream was, it was so varied. That's why when I look back on it, there's so much variety of content from that stream. And also my probably favorite part of that whole live stream was the Zoom in sessions where random people were just jumping up on screen and people that we'd interacted with on Twitter or what have you had never seen before face to face were just like, all right. I'm like, hello, who are you? And they tell us, and we're like, okay, I know who you are. I've never seen you before in my life, but we've chatted enough that I know who you are. So getting to know the community well through that, but it's got to be the 24-hour live stream. Closely followed for me by the Man City podcast, which was very interesting. I know we've done other specials as well. City was good, but the live stream stands out, head and shoulders. Having said that, wouldn't do it again.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Let me tell you, which I haven't told you before, I don't ever want to fucking do that again. Ridiculous. I had no clue how difficult that was going to be. I think we were very fortunate in the way that we set it up, that it was very fast flowing and paced and there weren't too many bits of lulls during the day Yeah, if one of us wanted to have something to eat quickly, we could cover each
We
other,
can do that,
go to
yeah.
the toilet, whatever. It was all cool. Every single guest that came on contributed, everybody that supported in the chat and donated. It was a community effort between everybody. And I think, like, at the end, massive pride to have hit a target which you set, which was completely fucking unachievable, but we hit it anyway. So
yeah,
well done.
Amazing donations
But
towards the end.
in terms of podcast, it's the Berry podcast, mate. The Berry podcast, in my opinion, is the best podcast we've ever done.
Interesting.
And that's because I didn't speak much.
Well, I would disagree, but about you not speaking much, but there you go. Danny FPL Sick of It, who was a very big and kind contributor to the live stream charity.
Cost that guy a lot of fucking money, you know that,
no,
with your high target.
He also was the kind donator. If you're on YouTube, you'll see our Paolo Di Canio and Lily King little figurines as well. So thank you for those. Says, what was the one biggest regretful decision of the season? Mine was taking the armband off Trent last minute against Palace at home. Was swayed by the other noise on Twitter, and he ended up with a 14-pointer. A lesson to learn next season: play your own game, as James would say.
As I do say, yeah. I mean, I've covered mine already. It's the game week 25, not buying Salah, killed me.
Yeah, I think for me, it's not getting on Kevin De Bruyne earlier, and probably thinking that at some point the well is going to run dry and this hype's going to die down, and it just didn't. He was the gift that kept giving. You talked about the lack of captaincy swaying the other way next season and people captaining even more. The thing that I would add on to that as well, James, is because if his price is going to jump up to 11.5 million or something ridiculous like that, when you have a player who's one of the most expensive in your squad, you're even more drawn to want to potentially captain them. You didn't buy the likes of Salah or Mane early in the season, and you said regularly, I'm not going to spend that much money on them if I'm not going to captain them.
Yeah, I had the Kane Sterling plan. Yeah,
exactly. And it works the other way, where if I'm going to spend that much money on you, I want to be able to captain you quite regularly. Yeah. So people will captain him even more next season. But, I mean, you wouldn't bet against him delivering similar numbers again next season at all.
I don't want to give some of the numbers that we went over on our quiz yesterday for patrons, because I don't want to ruin the quiz for the patrons. I haven't listened to it yet. But some of Kevin De Bruyne's numbers are ridiculous. Ridiculous in terms of scary, in terms of how sustainable they could be and how he could have got a lot more points in the season gone than actually what he did get.
Yeah. And FPL Depression asked another question. What would you have done differently content-wise this season if you could?
Fucking hell. It's a good question, isn't it? What would we have done differently content-wise? Do a bit more. I don't know what to answer to that.
That's the wrong answer, James. I'll tell you what it comes down to. The reason that a lot of you guys like to listen to our content is because it is just us. Like literally what you see is what you get with James and I, and that's what you enjoy, the interaction, the banter, and it's just, we're just ordinary people talking shit about football. We ramped up the quantity this year. Obviously, we didn't expect to have launched Patreon necessarily. It wasn't part of our plan at the start of the year when we knew we were going to have so much more content, 5 shows a week and what have you. So we hit, there's quantity and quality. We definitely hit the quantity, and I think we have about the right amount of content now being produced. The thing I want to improve next year is definitely the quality. So being able to produce more micro content, more bite-sized stuff. We genuinely don't spend a lot of time on production thought necessarily. It's like, switch the mics on, what we're going to talk about, bang, let's go. And obviously we'll do research on certain topics and we'll know where we stand. I think next year, quality and refinement on some of the stuff is where I think I'd like to take it. Quantity, we've now, I think we're thereabouts.
We have to be careful with that though. Yeah, because I think one of the arts is exactly what we did at the start of this conversation was I said to you that I've got some data on your season and my season. We did not discuss what that was. No. I said there's one stat that will blow your mind, which was and it leads to a conversation about captaincy. If you and I have that, have that conversation offline, it's not the same on the podcast. I don't care.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was more blown away with how much you missed it than how many, because I knew how many captain points I'd had. I'd had a look on tools, but I didn't know that you had missed so much.
All right, fucking hell, put the shovel down.
FPL Lucky Plucker.
Lucky fucker.
Yes, that's the one.
Yep.
I was trying to avoid using the word fucker, and you just went and did it there. So there we go. Have you decided
why avoid it now, mate?
Have you decided how you'll replace North v South next season? How about super aggressive versus?
No, we haven't.
No, and I'm not sure if I'm a fan on super aggressive versus super patient.
No, I'm not.
Minimum of 3 transfers every week versus only 1 transfer every 3 weeks. I guarantee you patient would beat aggressive.
We will do something, definitely. It will be better than North v South. We'll come up with an idea in the next couple of weeks. We're also on Patreon next year. Our Friday show, which has kind of been the final plan, if you want, or game week preview since restart, is we're going to rebrand it a little bit as a differential show. We're going to set up a league for differentials with our patrons. It will still be a preview of the weekend. It's going to be very heavily focused on differentials.
Steve-O, Elite FPL Steve-O, he got into our content because of the wonderful, and we spoke about this earlier, 30 and 30, specifically all the correspondents covering their clubs. Will this be happening again? I know it's going to be difficult with the quick turnaround. Or I suppose all we can say right now is that, yes, you will get content before the season starts from all of our correspondents. We're just finalising the format it's going to take, whether we'll do COTCs or what have you. But rest assured, you will, and when I say you, I also mean it's not going to hide behind the Patreon wall or anything. You will get content from all of our correspondents before the start of the season. I'm looking forward to the 2 new correspondents, 1 returning correspondent, and Dara coming back as well, joining the mix and adding a new dynamic. Going to be a lot of fun. I think Leeds are going to have some very interesting FPL assets. I'm so glad to have Slaven back in the Premier League. I love Slaven Bilic. Looking forward to seeing West Brom. Yeah, and obviously there's going to be transfers. Arsenal going to be interesting. So many teams are going to be interesting to look at. I couldn't agree with you more as well, Steve-O, in the fact that the correspondents are amazing. Excuse me, I was stopping a second. Yeah,
they absolutely are. They are centre in front of what we do. That's why we'll never put them behind the wall. Clash of the correspondents during the season will maintain like normally regularly on Thursdays. The issue we've got this year is essentially probably from when the fixtures come out, we've probably got 21 days until the season starts. Now, if we do an individual podcast with each of them, that's 20 podcasts, right? That's just the Premier League correspondence, not even having the time to talk to the guys who've unfortunately got relegated or obviously stay part of the team and stuff. So we might look at pairing people up into groups of 2, possibly even 4. The correspondents are aware of some of my ideas. The discussions are already happening. And when me and Suj come back from a break, we'll make a decision of what we're going to do with it. But 100% we will get the correspondent opinions too. And obviously very particularly and importantly, Dara's for Fulham, the Tinkerman, Andy, FPL Tacticians for Leeds, and Gemma and Harrison at Gemma Baggies for West Brom. Very importantly, we will make sure 100% they're given proper time to tell you about their clubs. But everybody will get the chance. The only thing we might do is, like, if City, United and Wolves aren't playing till game week 3 because they've done so well in Europe, for example, it might be that we could leave the guys out before game week 1 and there'll be priority for COTC once they're playing and stuff like that. That's the only thing. I mean, do you need to hear from Johnny Pringle if Man City aren't playing from game week 3? You know, if you want to leave Kevin De Bruyne on your bench for 2 weeks, good luck, do it. But yeah, we'll make a decision next couple of weeks, but we know how important they are and how important their views are.
Indeed. And you're talking about the new correspondence that we have. We've got Andy Martin has jumped on. He's not got a question, but he says, thanks for making me the lead correspondent. All the live streams, Champman, FPL Live, all that kind of stuff. Andy, it's a pleasure. And thank you and the guys for sorting out Champman this season, which filled a void for a lot of people in that gap. And it was really impressive.
Amen.
FPL Wilson, unfortunately, I go on holiday for a week on Monday too, which means I cannot save up all your podcasts to listen to on holiday. My absolute apologies for that. But, you know, go back to the 24-hour live streams are all on YouTube still as like...
do you know what? That is a great shout of people to do in the next week is catch up on it. Split into 4 6-hour parts, the live stream stuff. If you've missed any of that, I haven't even watched all of it back myself. I'm not sure. I haven't watched the last 6 hours of it. I think it's going to be way too cringy. Most of it, I've seen of it back. Most of it.
We had some interesting chats. I mean, in the last 6 hours when Tom, who got the assist, came on, and and Andy, Let's Talk FPL, and so on and so on. And obviously Tom's got his own personal story of what he'd been through and what have you. So it's cringy because it was midnight and we were a bit drunk.
Pissed.
But there was still some great content in there, especially when Tom pulled out the quiz that he'd been to a couple of days before and you aced every single question.
Drunk.
I don't even know if you remember that.
No, not really. No.
He was pulling out nationalities of players that had played in the Premier League that I hadn't even heard of the country. You knew the name of the player. That was incredible. We've got Jimmy Mac and Cheese. This is a good question. I've got an answer already lined up, James. Who wins your Bell End of the Season award?
If you know the answer, go on, and I'll have a think about it.
Everybody that set up an FPL, a Twitter account to stick out fake team news. Bell Ends.
Listen, it's as much bell ends the people who get sucked into it, to be honest. Is this person right? Is he trustworthy? Or listen, he ain't trustworthy. I think in the end, by game week 38, there was people out there who were obviously taking the fucking piss. But I'm not a fan of it. Like, I think why set it up, but if that's what people want to do, great. It didn't bother me with anything I was doing. The first name that comes to my mind, I'm going to be honest, was Paul Pogba. I still can't get over that handball against you. Yeah. I can't get over it, mate.
Maybe it's a bit fresh in the mind at the moment.
Yeah, I guess so. Biggest bell end of the season, VAR. Every fucking referee except Sean Massey.
Yeah. Stockley Park is
Stockley Park. Mike Riley, you are bell end of the season. That's the answer, is Mike Riley.
It's funny, Amber Redmond's question is next, James, and who or what wins the what the hell happened there moment of the season?
The what the hell? Pogba.
What the hell happened there?
I can't believe that he did that. What the hell happened?
Fabianski
no, he's got to be.
Was horrible.
No, the disallowed Sheffield United goal against Villa.
Oh yeah, you're right.
It's got to be that.
Yeah, because for minutes afterwards, we were just that was a goal. It just felt.
I was screaming. I wanted Sheffield United to lose because they were just above Spurs in the table at the time. I'm screaming at the TV that it's a goal. And I didn't care. I had FPL assets from both. It didn't really make a lot of difference to me. I'm screaming at the TV. It's a fucking goal. I don't need a replay. Every one of us could see it first time. He was pushing the ball against the back of the post. It wasn't even like it bounced well over the line. He's pushing the ball against the back of the post. Which bit of you thinks that the whole of the ball is not in the goal? Oh my God.
Incredible.
And Villa, just as a reminder, did stay up by a point.
Benny Blanco, I think you thoroughly deserve your week off. Can I assume you're going to be recording double podcasts this week to cover the absence?
We've recorded 40 podcasts in advance. We just haven't told you, and they're all going to drop during the week. No, they're really not.
Unfortunately not. Thank you for all your support, though, Benny. Benny's been a supporter of everything we do and appreciate it. And maybe we'll be up in Liverpool for another live show one day next season, and we'll be able to meet and have a drink again.
Manchester, what a great day that was. Brilliant.
Well, I think this time we're going to go to Liverpool, James, just to even it out up in the north.
Oh, yeah? I'm going fucking south to Brighton. I don't know about you.
FPL Tractor, Nairobi, mate. FPL Tractor in
you in fucking Kenya. You should get over it, mate. I can't even get to Tottenham and you want me to go to Kenya. Get over it.
In honour of your well-earned break, who in football needs a break, excluding Eddie Howe?
Me.
You'd be happy if Jose Mourinho. You'd be happy if Jose Mourinho had a little break, wouldn't you?
Who needs a break? So it's wow, that's a good question. Newcastle fans, I think.
Unfortunately, they do. I mean, we put it out on Patreon pods.
I can't think of anyone more than I've said it, Eddie Howe, a few times. Was actually a little bit emotional watching some of the stuff he and Bournemouth put out over the last week or so, because it's very easy for the Premier League focused listener to forget he took over Bournemouth. Massive points deduction, 23rd in League Two, and it started with making sure they stayed a Football League club to spending 5 years in the Premier League is an incredible achievement. Can't think of anyone more than him. I can feel Palace fans on the back of my neck saying, I want to change a manager. Roy Hodgson. I'm not saying the guy should go and retire, but that's probably what's waiting for him soon. I think if Palace start the season badly, I think they'll make an early change.
Amrabat man Joe Finley Batter, who did incredibly well in Sky Fantasy Football this year. What's more likely to happen next season? Suj remembers to make his transfers and captains in Sky, or James grows dreadlocks.
Gee, thank God for the benefit of those on YouTube that I put the cap on today. How does anybody think? There's more chance of me growing dreadlocks off my chin than there is on the top of my head. So it's definitely you. I might remember to make captaincy choices, yeah.
And FPL Ray Gooner, what was your biggest success story and biggest flop this season, be it captaincy or transfers? Cheers for all the content you guys put out, and finally happy to be a patron. No worries about that at all. Biggest success story and biggest flop, captaincy or transfer?
Success story has to be game week 30. I fucking nailed that, right? Was it 300 and something game week rank? Bench boost where even if you picked my 4 weakest players, it was still 16 points, I think. 4 points 4 times over. So that was big success. I think highlight probably actually was Harry Kane game week 1, believe it or not, because I put the balls out to captain him, right, and Salah had already done bits against Norwich on the first night. So for Harry to have the 2 late goals against Villa and us to win the game in doing so was probably the FPL highlight of the season for myself. But I became aware very, very quickly that I couldn't have the faith in my football team anymore to be sticking the armband on Harry Kane. So I had to move away.
I was happy with the Bruno Fernandes captaincies towards the end of the season. That was 60 points over 2 game weeks was particularly good. In terms of biggest flop of the season, I have no idea how or why Danny Drinkwater ended up in my squad.
Fuck.
I don't know how
and
that
for
happened.
Which club?
Exactly. He was in for Burnley.
Danny Drinkwater holds an amazing statistic this season of making 2 debuts, both against Manchester City, and conceding 10 goals over the 2 games. I mean, that takes some doing. In fact, it's Man City today. We'll stick him in for his debut. Bosh, beat 4-1. And then Villa think the same. Bosh, 6-1. Fucking hell. How did you end up Danny Drinkwater in your squad?
No idea.
The one I think I regret, I keep coming back to, is Pookie, you know.
Keeping or
no, buying him in the first place. But I tell you what, I think.
But he did return for you and for me when we bought him.
The one comment I always remember at the time was Lee from FPL Family, good friend of the show, and he said, and it was absolutely spot on. He said on his stream at the time that actually buying him was a no-brainer because it was almost like a no-lose. He's going to fly up in value. And if he continues to return, which he did the next week against Chelsea, he got a goal and assist, then great, he continues to return. But the downside of actually not going with him was bigger. The problem was, for many of us, he just fucking hung around for so long. And then you watch him towards the end of the season, you think, is he even a Premier League striker? Like, what's happened to his confidence and stuff? So, yeah, I don't regret buying him at the time because in terms of actual transfers, I bought him in and he got a goal and an assist and good bonus in game week 3. But then he just hung around for so long. And it's easy, particularly at the start of the season, if you've got value up in someone, it's easy to leave them in while you're putting out fires elsewhere. I think for me, it got to probably, when they played probably Burnley around about game week 6 or so, and it should have been, do you know what? It ain't happening here for him, I don't think. Let's move it on. And then when he did finally return, he was on my fucking bench anyway. The team with Pookie's one that actually stands out in regret. But I think if I was in the same position again, I'd probably still get him, particularly as I envisage next year. I'm probably going to have some strikers at around about that value.
Yeah,
it probably is the sort of transfer I would still make again.
Okay, we're going to be a quick through some of these as well now, James. Tim Keen, FPL cricketer, how are you, Tim? Is asking, how will the pods and patrons change over the course of the next season? Watch this space, Tim. When we're back on the 17th, we'll have a bit more of a rundown of our schedule and how it's going to be. But we've also got a month before the season starts. So we'll be adjusting and figuring out the right rhythm for next season as well. FPL crate digger, John Smith Spurs. This is an easy one for you, James. What was your favourite game week and why?
30, I suppose. because of the return. But actually, probably game week 1 because of what I said with Kane. Spurs winning, won the game well, good second half performance, a good week in FPL and whole. VAR hadn't impacted me at that point. That's probably the happiest I was game week 1. It's possibly the last time I was happy.
Mm-hmm. I think I would say probably game week 37. I was having a bad game week up until the last day, where it was obviously Man United, West Ham and Liverpool, Chelsea. And that Liverpool-Chelsea game for me was Trent, Robertson, Pulisic, and the United game against us was Martial, Greenwood. So I was doing badly that game week. And then in the last few hours, I pulled away, and a few of the mini leagues that I was in, I dropped away, and picking up like 30 points that night or even more, it was massive for me that day. So it's nice when you're behind, and it goes to show, right? It ain't over till the fat lady sings.
Christian Pulisic, I said it on the podcast straight afterwards, will go down in a little bit of Planet FPL folklore, because essentially his returns in that second half at Anfield, when originally being named on the bench, I said it straight away, that's what's going to win it for you. And so it proved.
Yeah. FPL Dreamer, best formation that worked for you and thoughts on the best one for this upcoming season. But we really
don't worry about that shit.
Worry about it. Yeah. I mean, the FPL Premier Tools will tell you what works best for you, but we'll see.
Don't even take. You can look at Premier FPL Tools, right? And you take mine and go, what was it? I think it was 3 or whatever formation I played in game week 30. Guess what? That's what came bloody highest on the average points. If you don't think about that sort of thing, then it's going to show up as much higher than everybody else with 143 points or whatever it was. So, no, I'm the sort of guy who's happy to move around systems. I suspect if you want to pin me to the wall right now, it's probably going to be 3-5-2, depending on reclassification of players possibly. But be flexible and be prepared to move. How often do you see someone who's play 3-4-3 all season long? And I'm sure there are people out there who are regimented and genuinely will only play that way. But you'll all end up with different formations anyway. Prepare to be flexible. Don't even know the prices. Can't answer that question.
Indeed. FPL Hindsight, how are we doing? Your content has been quality this season. Appreciate it. Any tips for people looking to start creating FPL content? There's such a plethora of information out there now. And it's difficult to begin to know where to start. So many are covered by older, more reputable accounts.
If you don't know where to start, don't start.
I think there are maybe post break, we can sit down and look at the process behind starting the podcast. There are a few points that I would make very quickly, and maybe we'll go into more detail post break. But one is have the stamina to carry on. Your early stuff will get no listens, no views, no reads, nothing. If you haven't got the stamina to carry on for an entire season, then yeah, don't start. I think the first podcast we put out barely got to 100 listens. So if we had stopped then thinking, who cares, we would never be where we are today. The second thing is identify who you are and what your character is. We've naturally fallen into that, being ourselves. I don't think there was ever any conscious effort to try and be anything different, but a lot of people will try and emulate someone else's style or copy features from other people's podcasts and what have you. There are so many things that other people do better than we can. Statistically, maybe might be a good one, that kind of thing, that we can't compete. By the same token, James will analyze a game tactically like no one else can. And so find out who you are and then create content in your own style and have the stamina to keep going, because you really need it.
You have to be yourselves, and the biggest thing is you have to enjoy it. Don't do it for seeking for gain. Suj and I are in a position now where we've looked at it and been encouraged by people at live shows who have said, you guys need to do Patreon, to decide, do you know what? All right, now's the right time. We're going to do it. If you're sitting there with the vision that eventually you're going to be there on 100,000 followers or whatever and be this, that and the other, don't. Just do it for the love and enjoyment. And if it takes you somewhere, great. You have to enjoy what you're doing, because if you don't enjoy it, other people won't. And exactly what Suj said, start trying to copycat others, you're going to really, really struggle. Obviously, you'll have crossovers, but you got to find your own style and your own rhythm.
Yeah. And FPO Tangerine asks what the 2020-2021 plan is for Planet FPL, watch this space is all I can tell you about that right now.
It's the Win Sky Fantasy Football, and I'm not fucking about.
FPL Apprentice asks a question which probably we won't answer right now, but it's an interesting concept. What about a European fantasy football game where you have teams from all of the leagues, top big 5 leagues, single player from a team, wild cards, chips, all of that kind of stuff? Would that interest you, James?
No.
Are you playing Scotland fantasy football?
I've set a team up because a lot of the patrons were doing it, but yeah, I've already lost interest. I've got a goalkeeper problem because 8 Aberdeen dickheads decided to go out on the piss in one of the biggest infected coronavirus towns in Britain at the moment, and now their game at St Johnstone tomorrow has been postponed. Well done.
I honestly didn't realise this. I didn't realise the season already started so quickly. So I saw people tweeting, and I thought, yeah, sure, I'll get round to it, and because everybody is, I will. And then next thing I know, all the results were coming through. I was like, what? Their season started. You're having a laugh.
Teams from multiple leagues and stuff. Isn't this? It sounds like Champions League. UCL fantasy is what it sounds like to me. It's too much for most people to keep in. Yeah, listen, you want to create some new content and fix up the game, make it happen. Listen, we struggle enough. We're talking about, deadlines for FPL. Should they be moved and all those, extra chips? Listen, 98% of the players don't care. They just want to log in and pick their captain and make their transfer and then move on to the next week, right? The more layers you add, the less interest you're going to have as a global product.
Correct. We have Aaron Wood, who talks about how he says, with the game and the world so uncertain, is the word essential now a thing of the past when it comes to
fucking hate it. I would like.
It's already in the past. In the past.
What's that room? 101.
Yeah, room 101.
Yeah, let's get the word essential in room 101. I reckon you and I, right? If we mention the word essential on podcast next season, in season 4, we should some sort of forfeit.
Yeah. Luke Wilson.
What's the forfeit?
Don't know. Adam Hopcroft did a pod for Hub the other day
about essentials.
It was interesting. No, he said exactly the same thing. And here's a guy who's got a much better FPL record than us. He said he hates the word essential. There's no players that are essential. I don't know. We'll think of a forfeit. Listeners, comment, send it in. No,
not taking the listeners' ideas, mate. Fuck them in the nicest possible way. These lot will be like, run naked down Tottenham High Road and stuff like that. No, I'm not doing it. Wear an Arsenal shirt. No, I'm not doing it.
FPL Veer, thanks for all the hard work. And it's been really evident this season. Thank you very much. Onwards and upwards next season. Easily his favourite podcast is us. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Luke Wilson, some repetitive questions here that we've answered already. Would you prefer Sky or FPL?
Sky.
Answer that. Sky.
I know it's not what people want to hear, but I'm also not going to lie to anyone
either. Rich FPL, any lessons learned this year, boys? We've been through a few. I'm definitely going to be looking for upsides more this season than next.
Loads. I mean, probably too many to count, right? I think the greatest thing is that knowing that you'll be wrong is a really good lesson to learn. Is to know that in advance the opinion that you have could be wrong, and understand why your opinion would be wrong. Like this time last year, I've said it a few times, we all thought we were going to buy Gylfi Sigurdsson. I mean, imagine laughing at that now in hindsight, right? Yeah. Or people that even in game week 30 were in my ear going, I think Ozil will be good for the double. Do you think Ozil will turn up? Do you think Ozil will be allowed to turn up, right? And these are short-term memory things. They're not long ago, right? So it's understanding that opinions can be wrong and your own opinions will change. Understanding where you went wrong.
And we will leave the last question of the entire season to a claret and blue friend, Sham from Two Guys, One Cup. Favourite pod of the season? We've talked about already. That? Yeah, we have.
James, I mean, Sham's appearance on the 24-hour, you talk about must view.
He said, well, his second question was favourite moment of the live 24-hour stream. Well, it must have been when Sham was on, surely.
Yeah, anything but when Sham was... Yeah. No, anything but when Sham was on. Sham did a brilliant piece on problem gambling in the final half hour of part 2, if you want to find it on YouTube. From simple search on YouTube, Planet FPL 24, go to 5 hours, 25 minutes, you'll find it. Really, really brilliant piece. There were too many good things in that show. I mean, probably my personal favorite, very selfish, was when Emma came on. Emma Story, because she's not part of the FPL community.
Sure.
We had a good chat about what's happening, the difference between Germany and England and etc. And Emma acquitted herself great.
Yeah.
And she could relate to all these FPL players, even though she'd never played FPL. People were like, oh, I'm invested in this person. She was brilliant.
Thinking back on the season now, I mean, we've done a lot of stuff. Live shows, specials, all of that kind of stuff.
30 and 30, right, was 14 months ago. How long ago does it feel to you?
How long ago? Because
it feels like 14 months ago was 30 and 30. Yeah.
Wow.
It feels like 14 years ago.
Feels like longer.
Exactly.
I honestly think
point.
About 30 and 30, I see as I feel like it was in between season 1 and season 2, not in between season 2 and season 3.
Last summer, mate.
Yeah, I remember the sofa. We had a completely different setup.
Do you know what I listened to was funny, because I did this before we did the Sky Pods on Wednesday. I listened back to episode 2 of 30 and 30 with Paul, Sky Player in FPL.
Yes.
To see where our opinion was, because we didn't even know if we were going to play the game. Yeah. To see what our opinions were and the sort of questions we asked for Sky. Because I'm thinking, well, if I asked those sort of questions then, similar people will be asking similar questions of us now when we did our one. And at the end of the show, Paul goes, just want to congratulate you guys for all the hard work you do. You've been doing this season. 2 podcasts a week is amazing. I fell about laughing, mate.
The good old days. The good old days. Indeed. So, guys, we're away for a week now with no content, but there's so much in the back catalogue that you can listen to. If you are on Android or iPhone, we do have a Planet FPL app as well. So if you don't want to search around through iTunes or SoundCloud or Spotify or Stitcher or what have you, head over to the App Store or Google Play and just search Planet FPL. You'll be able to download the app. And it's a very simple, easy way to get all your Planet FPL content. A few other things to note. We do have a Patreon for anybody that wants to support the pod more. The Patreon allows you access to exclusive additional podcasts. So on top of the 5 that we produce every week, there's Patreon exclusive stuff as well. For example, today we've produced a podcast about the failed takeover at Newcastle United. There was a quiz that went out yesterday. We had an even more in-depth analysis of Sky Fantasy Football the day before. There's a lot going on there. We have a Slack channel which has over 200 people actively chatting about FPL and football. The correspondents who we've talked about are all in there as well. So if you've got questions about your teams, you can jump in and chat to them in there. Of course, you can DM them on Twitter or what have you. Slack's our own little private network of communications there, which is a lot of fun as well. And next season will be the start of our Patreon prize mini leagues as well. From the basic, intermediate and advanced tiers, you could be winning as much as 50 quid a month for the manager of the month, 350 quid for the manager of the year, and so on and so on. To give you an idea, the advanced tier Patreon, which is 14 quid a month, there's only 30 odd people in there at the moment, and it's 50 quid a month for manager of the month and 350 quid for manager of the year. I reckon I could win it, but I'm not allowed, apparently. We're going to be giving away some Planet FPL mugs and goodie bags and all sorts with our prize leagues.
Maybe we should enter them to try and block some of these prizes that we're going to be giving out. But I mean, that is on the advanced tier. And there's plenty of additional ideas I've got for additional content on the advanced tier, which will be going over sort of in the next 2 to 3 weeks or so. But yeah, exactly. You're going in currently with about 30 other people, and Manager of the Month's going to win 50 quid. Patreon
as well. If you do decide you're going to join, and you're thinking about it but want to wait until the season starts, which is the 12th of September, you've actually got absolutely no reason to wait. If you sign up now, September is free. You'll get access to the back catalogue of content and all of the Patreon posts as well. So if you sign up for the rest of August now, you'll also get all of September free. We're pausing all payments because obviously we have this downtime and off season and what have you as well. So head over there, join the fun. It'll be good to have you on board within our community. James, anything else to add?
No, just thank you to everybody who's supported this year. We probably can't say thank you enough to everybody who's contributed, liked, shared, loved, interacted, come to the live shows, etc., supported the 24-hour show, everything. There's not really enough thanks we can give. And thanks for, do you know what, even the little messages like, keep going, lads. Yeah, it all helps, and we're all grateful. We both need a break. We're going to take it, but we're taking a break so we can start season 4 in 10 days.
It's going to be the best yet. There we go. Other than that, as always, guys, stay safe. I know it's difficult times at the moment, and we're seeing all sorts with the virus and what have you. So keep washing your hands, look after each other, and we'll be back in a week. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everybody. Be nice to each other, and thank you. Cue music, please, man child.